Hi, I'm Ruben. You might know me as Queer Chicano Chisme. You can follow me at the link below. And today we have a special guest.
Special gaze.
My accent always pops
I mean, it's bi visibility day, so yeah.
I'm cute today we have a special guest, Andrea Lausell.
Hi, I'm Andrea. I make content online about disability, specifically the disability that I have, which is spina bifida, and also how that intersects with being Latina. I'm Cuban and Puerto Rican, or as I like to say, Cuba Rican. And I don't know if you're gonna keep that little special gay, but also bi, so then there's that.
Okay, it's Latinx Month and it's Bi Visibility Week, so we're doing this live. We're celebrating all your full identity.
Oh my God, this is great.
So today we're gonna have a discussion on disability and Latinidad and what it means to us. So yeah, thank you for joining us. Andrea, if people, were approaching your channel for the first time, what video would you say, go look at this video so you know what's up, what's poppin'?
The first video that you will see that will be played automatically when you go on my channel, it's me answering Google's top questions on disability. I get very snarky in it, but I think it's like a little crash course, a little satire, just answering those, strange questions of like, can you have sex and things like that. And the next one would probably be I really love the video that I made with fashion and disability. It's very recent. I just love those two things, and I think a lot about disability culture involves fashion, the way like queerness and fashion go hand in hand. Disabled people do the same thing because also a lot of disabled people are also queer. So those two videos, I think, represents how I feel about it all.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you brought up both like answering like disability 101 questions and also fashion, because a lot of the times, like, I think as marginalized people, we're like supposed to just only talk about the one thing and like focus on our identity and like ignore the part that we're like normal people that have normal interests.
Well, especially with disability, because a lot of people have this idea that disabled people should look very sick and their skin shouldn't be glowing and they should just look tired and miserable, which is not the case. A lot of us, we are very sick, and on the inside we're very miserable, but on the outside, like, we love, dressing up and wearing makeup and everything. And I just want people to know that you can be both. You can still look amazing while also suffering.
Woo.
That's very morbid.
No, it's real. No, like, as someone who like lives with depression, like, also people think that like you're sad all the time and that this and that, and I'm just like, I'm not necessarily sad. It's literally like my body does not want to do anything today.
Well, also putting on makeup for me is very much an act of self-love, and it makes me feel in control because like with disability, my body does things that I didn't ask it to do. And so when I can just put on makeup and just make something beautiful on my face, I get a little bit more of autonomy back. And so that's why I like dressing up and why I love using makeup. I don't care about being a beauty guru. I want to feel how I know I should be feeling on the inside, but my body's just not letting me.
I do want to be a beauty guru, so
ColourPop, sponsor us.
MAC, Viva Glam,
everyone.
No, I've done like one makeup YouTube tutorial, and that was fun.
Do more.
Maybe. I like suck, and I like. Oh yeah, before I forget, topic of tutorials and depression. This is a part 2. This is a part 2 video.
Oh yes.
Or
part one if you started here first.
There's a different video. There's a collaboration. There's another video where Andrea teaches me how to make Cuban beans.
Yeah, Cuban black beans. So frijoles negros.
Yeah, and it's like, it's an easy dish to prepare when you're like hella depressed and like don't have much energy. And so yeah, so tune into that one if you like, or even if you don't like what we talk about today. Go watch that shit anyway. But yeah, back to the discussion. how do you think like being either bisexual and or Latinx like has affected your experience as a disabled bisexual person?
If I'm gonna talk about being bi in a Latinx space, it's gonna be already in a group of queer Latinx people. If I'm gonna be and then if I'm not in a queer Latinx group, I just never bring it up. Because I don't know how to explain it. I don't want to explain it. Because I'm already tired of explaining about disability, which was it was one of the reasons I talked to one of my good friends, Annie Elaney, about. That was one of the reasons I took so long to come out. Because I already have a marginalized identity that people are getting killed, people are getting discriminated, and I was terrified of adding another one publicly. To be in another one where there's almost the mirroring statistics that disabled people have. So it's just exhausting. And I'm just like, okay, I just want to do me, I guess. Like, I don't know, it's hard. And I feel like Latinx people don't want to learn. And they are like that with disability. Latinx culture doesn't want to learn, no matter how much you fight. So I'm just kind of like, I stick more with, I guess, English-speaking Latinx people who are more westernized in the sense of American, United States American, because it's just, I don't know, it feels, we all kind of get it of the strange culture we have here in the US. So I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I definitely don't know how to talk about being bi in Spanish. I don't know that language.
I don't know how to necessarily talk about being non-binary in Spanish. So even though in English, like I'll use like he and they pronouns, and I'll be able to like articulate like being non-binary femme. In Spanish, like I don't have that language either. So I think that's definitely also something that I relate to, and like having to explain that and disability, like depression, like in Latinx culture and a lot of Latinx culture, there is no depression. There's just laziness.
Yeah, and it's the same with I've started using the slang for disability in Spanish, discapaz. I really like how it sounds,
Yeah.
but a lot of when you talk about disability in Spanish, it's like super depressing. And I can't speak for like the disabled communities in Latin America, in those countries. I don't know what they're doing fully of like reclaiming words in Spanish. I haven't seen it, and in the US I don't see it, and so I'm trying to, for myself, say it in Spanish, because in English I feel fine talking about disability. We've reclaimed so many words, but I feel like my disability and my Latinx culture doesn't go together. That I have to keep disability in my English-speaking world and in my US American world. And then Andrea, the Cuban and Puerto Rican, fits on the other side. So it's like, I just feel like I'm just pulled to different areas, but they can't ever mix in my head.
Yeah, no, I feel that immensely. Yeah, I mean, I still struggle to like talk about depression in with my Latinx community, and that also has to do with like how even in English it took me a minute to understand how mental health is also a part of like, you know, disability politic, and it was through an ex actually that they were like teaching me like the social and like medical model of like disability, right, and how identifying as like disabled can be a political act, right, because you're stating like I need access. If you want me to exist in public, then things need to be accessible to me because I am disabled, right? And that goes for, you know, disabilities across the board, right? Whether if you need elevators or easy to open doors, or like, you know, things for if you're deaf, and things like that. claiming your disability is about claiming your right to exist in public.
It's also because a lot of people a lot of people who aren't disabled like to have the debate of it should be people with disabilities and disabled people. And at the end of the day, disabled people can decide what they want to use as an identifier. But also, it's also relearning how we see disability in the word, because disabled's not a bad word, and for me it's not, because it also is safety, because I can't do some things and that's fine, and saying I'm disabled lets you know I can't do this, so I can be safe because now you know what I can't do. A lot of people are like, oh, but you can do so much more. Yes, but I still can't do things and you need to know. It's just, and for some reason they don't understand it. It's the same as if an able person can't sing. That's just something they can't do. Yeah, they can do a bunch of things. Maybe they can dance, but they still can't sing, and they will tell someone they can't sing, but no one's going, oh no, you could if you just tried. So why are we not applying that same thought with disabled people? Like, I'm just like every other person. I can't do something. So it's political, and for me it's a safety measure that I want people to know I can't do something. So be aware. Like, I love it, and I also am just like frustrated with it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I got more stuff from non-family member Latinx people who didn't understand I was disabled versus my family. Like, my ex's sister, when she first met me, I told her about my disability, and they're Mexican American, by the way. She looked at me dead in the eye and was just like, oh, you can't be disabled. Our people aren't like that. And I just was like, I didn't know they were mutually exclusive. I'm pretty sure I've been disabled my whole life, so I didn't know, like, Latinx people weren't. It makes no sense. I don't know.
Yeah, the whole, like, disability and, like, Latinidad being, like, mutually exclusive things, like, that's something that still, like, angers me, because, like, I get it as, like, someone who, like, tries to talk openly about mental health, like...
They think it's a white person.
Yes! Oh my god. I got diagnosed with depression when I was, like, 13, and, along with a learning disability, but I was just, like, told to ignore it. Like, and it's like, no, you just gotta push through, and, like, blah, blah. So, like, you don't stop being disabled, you just, like, learn different things to help you overcome that in different ways, which is not a good thing, because then the world becomes that much harder to you, right? So I had to, learn how to read in different ways, and when I blame myself. I thought I was a lazy person for a very long time because I didn't know how depression worked, because I was like, I wasn't sad per se, I just was, I didn't have energy. And then as, like, an activist, when I started being more politically active in my college years, I was always, like, a straight A student, so I needed to get good grades, I needed to have a social life, I needed to be politically active, which means that there was no room to be depressed there. So this was in my mid-20s, and so instead of, like, honoring my depression, what I was doing instead is I was, like, over-caffeinating. Like, to make up for that, and, like, that leads to all sorts of problems. Like, my sleep schedule's probably messed up for life now. But that is the result of, like, this ableist upbringing, right, that a lot of folks have. And, like, luckily later in life, I got, resources and, like, the knowledge to kind of, advocate for myself and combat that mindset, but I'm still, like, I go to therapy, and, like, that is not something that's normalized in my family or community at all. Like, if you go to therapy, like, you are on the verge of losing it. Not that I'm not, but, like...
I tell... My parents are fine with therapy now, just because we had to really convince my dad to start going for his PTSD. I don't know if he fully believes in it, but, like, they don't really make us feel bad now. Like, I call my mom every time after my therapy appointment. But I think there's another thing too, and it pairs with like religion in our community, that my abuela would pray over me all the time. And I didn't understand at first why, like, because she's a very religious person, so I just thought, oh, okay. And I don't really understand religious Spanish words because I grew up going to an English-speaking church. So I, like, never knew what she was saying. It's like, I know, like, God in Spanish and stuff, but she also, like, goes really quick. Then I'm like, okay. But then that thought that, like, Latinx have, like, oh, if you do this, you'll be better, you'll be healed. Even using some of the accommodations, like, I'm sure if my grandma saw me walking with my orthopedic inserts and they help correct my walking and they help my balance, in her head she would probably think, good, now you wouldn't need to say you're disabled because this is fixed, so that you look better in our community's eyes. And so I think, like, that's the thing that adds on to it. And then even, like, I'm sure some family members think, well, if I do therapy, then everything will be fixed after I stop. And I'm like, no, I'm just in a good point. I might have to go back at some point.
Yeah, that's something that also, like, that was a hard pill to swallow for myself, too, about, like, therapy doesn't fix things permanently. Like, the way it's been told to, by my therapist is, like, therapy makes the ledge, like, longer and, like, wider, so you have more space to process, and you learn how to process things because you're always going to live with trauma. And so that's something that was like, oh my god, like, but yeah, no, so you know, the fact that therapy isn't, like, free and, like, widely available to folks is, like, it's very indicative of, like, again, like, who the system wants to see thrive and survive.
Like, I agree with that. Like, it has to be more accessible in order for our communities to get more healthy, and our communities deserve to be more healthy. So
yeah. So let's end on a positive note. Like, what is something that you often celebrate about being queer and disabled and Latinx? What's something that, you know, gives you life?
The people in the community. I think I want to say online specifically, because a lot of times people like to rag on online relationships and friendships because, like, they think in person's better, and to a degree it's, like, nice to be in person, but a lot of queer and disabled people, and especially those with both of it, are very isolated, are very home and stuff. So having the online presence of other people like you is very, like, liberating and love, and again with finding chosen families and stuff. So for me, that's the thing that gives me life, because as I'm getting older and becoming even more political and understanding what I deserve in my life, it caused a lot of tension with my abled friends and my abled family. So knowing I have this new family of queer and disabled people that I can vent to, and also who can check me when I'm wrong in a healthy manner, that's what I love about, like, having these identities, that I realize I'm like, wow, I have two cultures that have a rich history and of people that love you no matter what, and, like, accept your body and accept your thought process for what it is and stuff. So I love that the most. And then I just love queer disabled fashion because it looks so good and also helps you at the same time. So yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah. For me, like, I like, you know, the culture and, like, its vibrancy, but also, like, our ability as queer Latinx folks, queer disabled folks, to reconstruct consistently. Like, we are, you know, peoples who's had to continuously redefine what it is to exist and exist openly. And
Yeah.
I feel a really strong, I feel really empowered by the fact that, like, because a lot of, like, disabled culture and queer culture and even some Latinx culture is not necessarily something that is inherited by family, but rather passed on through like through the oral tradition or like reading and like meeting folks online. Like our culture is eternal, and so I really feel proud of being part of that cultural legacy. Yeah.
Oh, that's cute. I didn't even think about it, like how like we're also adding to a legacy. That's heavy. I don't know if I can do that. But I mean, also I'm happy because then it brings people in your life. Like you and I wouldn't be sitting here today, because like if we didn't, I think the internet for me is what makes me the happiest, because it brings we're in similar communities and the same communities as well, but we would have never met if it wasn't for the internet. And I think the internet, it's funny, the people that don't like the internet are the people who aren't marginalized. They're the ones hating it. They're hating all of the things about it. But then people like us who are marginalized, like, it's where we survive.
Yep. After I graduated college, like, if it wasn't for the internet, I don't know how I would have done it. Like, I met most of my friends. I, was able to connect with all sorts of people all over the U.S. and, like, eventually make it my job. So,
yeah, that's a thing, too. People get mad at, like, they make fun of influencers, but, like, even, OG YouTubers that you see, they, like, tease us, the younger ones, because now we make money off videos, and they're always so proud. Oh, when I started making videos, it wasn't about the money. And that's cool. But you opened a door for me where now we don't have to be in this cycle of ableist mainstream jobs. We can take care of ourselves, provide for our communities in our own terms. And the internet did that and stuff. And like, yeah, I don't know. I'm just glad of all the people it brought into my life. And then even, like, definitely, like, coming out as bi. I already had people that loved me, but then, like, when I was very subtle about it, I just posted a photo. And I was like, because that's kind of how I am when I come to announce things. I'm just like, here it is. Fuck, like, I'm not going to fucking make a huge video. I don't, like, hi. And some of my, like, Twitter mutuals were like the first to like contact me, like, I love you. That's all. And like, aww, just having that, I didn't know I needed that, because I didn't feel like I was going to be abandoned by anyone. But for some reason, just having those Twitter mutuals who I've never met in person stand by my side was just like, wow. Like, yeah, I guess those are the high notes. Like, we found love on the internet. Aww. Like platonic, especially platonic love. That's what I love about it. There's a lot of good emphasis on how important platonic love is. So, aww, that's our long ass video for you.
Well, thank you for joining us. Follow Andrea's work all over the internet, primarily on YouTube and Instagram, but also on Twitter, and support her on Patreon and buy her merch. I'll put some links down below, and also a link to the other video that we shot with her, which will be a lot shorter.
Yes, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel, because I want them to hit even more subscribers than me. Aww. Because, like, you make great work, and you, like, do your research. I'm sitting here just talking about my feelings and telling people to fuck off, but you're doing it in an intelligent way. Like, you have... I told them earlier, I'm like, you have your shit more together than you give yourself credit for.
Oof. Probably.
You do. There's no probably. You do. If you're not going to hype yourself up, I'm going to hype you up.
Thank you.
So, subscribe to both of us.
Yeah. All right, y'all. Thank you for joining us. Take care. Bye.